Hello, this is my last video assessment. And for this one, this is on TPE 5 and 6, which are student assessment as well as professional development. So for this one, I didn't have any videos that I felt were really good as far as with the students. So instead, I'm going to do a reflection on a lesson for this one. And for this lesson, this is the last lesson for Art 1, and this was an assignment that we called Art Board Game. And this was the lesson that I planned, developed, created with the head of the Visual and Performing Arts Department, who is kind of one of my mentors as well. She is not necessarily my master teacher, but she is the one that I work most closely with in the department because we both teach Art 1. So we spend a lot of time either via video or email back and forth talking about lessons, planning out lessons. In our first draft, we designed it out. We had weekly assignments. We started with the board. And for us, one of the big components of the board was to make it have a cultural heritage significance, which is a great way for the kids to connect with the art a little more personally, and also something they were familiar with. So this was a good kind of next step assessment. And we did this through an earlier project called Heritage Boxes, which we did in February. And this was, where do you come from and who helped you become you? So for this project, we had them kind of build on that idea. And this time, instead of making a little box and having these kind of more specific objects, students were going to analyze and extrapolate that knowledge. And instead of just directly copying, they needed to use it in their own way to design a game that they could play with their family. Because that was another thing during this time period. Everyone was in the shut-in. We couldn't really go out. You were with the same people all the time. So we're like, well, what can we do that students can, one, use knowledge they already have, two, further that knowledge, use it in a new way and show us that. So that was a big part of this assessment. And then three, have it be relevant to them. How can we connect this to something that is more personal? And then four, to share that knowledge. So usually they would only share that assessment with us. Their classmates would see it in the classroom for sure. But here they also get to share it with these people at home so they can really demonstrate their knowledge in a different way. And we had them do that for the very last part of this board game. So we planned that together. And all of this was posted in step-by-step instructions on the students' Google Classroom. So assignments are always posted on Google Classroom. This is my 5th period art classes classroom. So board game had multiple parts to it. It was a 4-part assignment. This first one right here had all the instructions. So in here in this presentation, students had access to the objectives, the standards we were working to. They had deadlines laid out very quickly for them because this was our last project. This was their final assessment. So they had to get everything in. They were reminded of that many times. And right after that was this overview schedule, which we did end up changing due to furthering circumstances along the way, and we cut out this box part, and we ended up not doing that. We ended up just doing the commercial and survey at the end instead. We had pictures, and then it was broken down by part. If for some reason a student didn't either know their heritage or it wasn't something that was talked about, instead we had a list of other themes they could do from around the world. So trying to catch a bunch of different things that we didn't necessarily see or talk about when we did the heritage boxes. So they had some kind of new ideas. In this show, I would also post examples with each element they needed to have laid out. So I felt like this was A really good thing for the students to have is these direct examples so they can see, okay, I've got this clear art style, I've got a start, I've got a finish, I have more examples of a specific art style. And I feel like one of my successes was actually filming these video every week for the students to view. And this I felt was a big success for me. I could go through step by step, cover everything the students needed to do. They could follow along with the video so that they could pause it when they wanted it and catch up a little bit. So I'm going to show just a sample of one of these, and this is for the game cards, which was part 2.
Just like with the elements of art cards, you're going to make principles of designs card. So each card should be 2 inches by 3 inches. You can do these on any type of paper, flat surface that you can cut out into a 2 by 3 shape that you have. If you only have lined paper, fine, don't worry about it. You probably are going to need to put a couple pieces of paper together, because when you have a single card, you shouldn't be able to see through the back. So you should be able to see what principle you're going to do and what the task is ahead of time.
So for this one too, it allowed for a lot of differentiation, because we know that not all students are in kind of the same position or the same economic status. So we really tried to create a project that students could do no matter what their situation was. So lots of different material choices and aspects. All students have Chromebooks, school-issued Chromebooks. We went 1-to-1 this year, which was very fortuitous. So students did have access. There were internet cafes set up so students could log on and be able to view their assignments as well.
So just make sure it's thick enough that you don't see both sides. So we're just going to talk through each of these and give you a few ideas of things to do. But I do want you to go out and explore and not just copy everything that I do. So our first principle of design is pattern. And you've probably seen pattern tons of times. Even look at your clothing. You might even be able to do pattern for one of yours. Pattern is a regular arrangement of altered and repeated elements. That would be same lines, same colors, same shapes on something. You might have that again on your clothes. Maybe you're wearing something that has stripes, and it's red stripe, white stripe, red stripe, white stripe. It's pattern. Maybe you see patterning in the room you're in. Like on my bedspread back there, it's got a leaf pattern over and over again. You could have somebody find an example of pattern for the task. You can also have something that we call manipulative, and that's just little things that you can touch and you can move around yourself. So I've got a bunch of buttons and beads, just different little things that I've acquired over the years, and I have them in a jar, so I just pulled some different colored, different shaped ones out for this activity. You can even do this with paper. Find some advertisements that you get in the mail that you'd usually throw away, find different colored parts of it, cut them out in circles, and then have maybe some squares or some hearts or some stars or whatever shapes you want. And use those and have people move them around and arrange them in certain ways. That's exactly what the principles of design are. They're just moving the elements of art around in specific ways. So I'm going to go ahead and make a pattern, example 1 with my manipulative. So I'm going to move the screen down so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to do it right here on this board. I've got a whole bunch of different things here, and I want to make patterns. So I kind of have to see what I have. Do I want to do things that are maybe the same shape? Every other one is the same shape. Do I want to do things that are the same color every other one or every 2? Up to you. So I see I have 3 of those beads. So I could maybe do something with those. And then maybe something with buttons. Okay. So I can make a pattern this way. So my pattern can be button, bead, button, bead, button, bead. That's one way to make a pattern.
So in this video, I liked this example because it shows lots of different ways for students to accomplish the same goal. They can find things in the room, they can use other materials. So we liked that assessment, and this was something, again, that the other VAPA teacher and I did together. How can we make sure this is accessible to all of our students and show that learning in different ways? So we knew that they were getting a lot of screen time during this period. So we thought, oh, well, how can we mitigate that? How can we do something that's a little bit different, as well as have some really nice assessments? So we actually did spend a lot of time going through our emails, checking, talking. We had office hours every week, sharing resources. And one of those resources that we ended up using at the end on Flipgrid. So students answered these questions. They just had a few minutes to do that, and they could do a commercial where they were in the screen or they were not in the screen to kind of highlight that learning. So this just provided another resource, but we knew that not all students would be super comfortable with that. So for this, we also had the board game survey, where they would give a little more detailed information about the theme of their board. How do you know this? Was it easy to play the game? And things that they learned about. So these were different questions. So they could fill this out as an alternative if they weren't comfortable doing the commercial. And some students were okay doing the commercial or even answering those questions instead, but didn't want to post a Flipgrid. They didn't want a lot of people to see it. So instead, they would post their own video on here. Some students even chose to do that for the previous assignment for part 3, where they talked about how the actual gameplay went. And again, that was originally a part that was going to be written, but some students videoed it instead, including this student. So she had a really great little video talking about her board game and how you played it. So this was an assessment that I thought was really perfect because she actually wrote it and then she went over everything in her video instead and did a great job of showing me her learning, talking about the theme of her board, explaining all these little characters and symbols, showing how the game was played, how you moved around the board. So hers was really an excellent assessment. So I'm going to show that as an example here.
And the objective of the game is to get all your pieces in here. Starts off by rolling a dice. The highest number, and you move out. You then draw any card from either pile, like this one. I got a 9, and it's in contra/snip. And on it says, do a Tano ritual dance or try to. I'm not going to try that right now, but I will move my 9 spaces to the left. 8, 9. If my piece were to land on the quicksand, I would not be able to move anywhere for one whole round. But say I pulled out a 3, and I would be able to get this guy, which means I am able to go on all the quicksands, and I can stop on them all the way around until I reach here. Once I reach here, I get off, you put it back in the middle, and you slide it in. You want to get all your pieces inside of your little huts in order for you to win. And the first person to get them all there wins, and the last person to get them.
So this was a good alternative that this student chose to do. Instead of writing it, she does have a 504 plan, and for her, this was a little bit easier method. So this was a good differentiation assignment as well, I thought. Like every assignment, there were definitely challenges both for me and the students. One big thing, this was the last assignment, so not all the students were quite as motivated as they maybe would have been in the classroom. So I did host video office hours, which I felt really helped with this. And talking through it with the students, either just on the phone or face-to-face, and being able to show them some of my examples in person and really go over that. And that, I felt like it was a really big success when students did that, and or they watched the videos of me giving the instruction. I could tell those students did a lot better on their assessments. I could see things that I had done that they were doing directly, which was okay because I did model it for their own benefit. So that was definitely, I felt, a good part of this assignment. Keeping the motivation up was definitely the biggest challenge with this, especially students who maybe didn't have a cultural theme. That was really kind of the big objective of this, was to go back and have that cultural theme again. And some students didn't really have that, and I would leave them feedback, and some of them just didn't ever go back and change it. And all students were given the opportunity to change this again because each part was due week by week, so it's really broken down into steps. The only part that had that firm deadline was at the very end. But as I said, we did end up changing it and taking that last part out. So they only had 4 parts to do. And we are giving students an extra opportunity to finish this and to have another chance if they failed. And that is a district-wide policy. If they failed the 4th quarter, they're doing okay 3rd, they can take an incomplete and complete that coursework over the summer. So to that end, the other FAFA teacher and I put together another part of this. And this is the Art 1 quarter 4 work packet. So this is going through each of the assignments. Here's the board game one. So we have the slideshow to help the students go through. Remember, it's an art game. Challenge questions must be art related. And then we also have the rubric on here. So this is how we graded it. Here is that rubric. So we've got standard right at the top, same as in the instructions. These essential art questions, including how does engaging in creating art enrich people's lives? And that was something we really wanted the students to understand and take away from this. So breakdown of points. Each objective is on here. This is the rubric for part 1 with all the parts listed. So this last part looks a little different for each part. The top ones are the same. So overall, I felt the students who went through and completed this assignment, and especially the ones that called into office hours and or watched my videos, did really well. And they produced some amazing pieces like the student in the video. Students who didn't, maybe didn't do quite as well, which is always a challenge for teachers trying to get that extra engagement. One thing I did do over the summer last year was actually take an art history training course. But in this course, we talked about art from different cultures, different communities, and what that art meant to them, because it's a huge component of art history. So I felt that that training also helped me with this cultural project because I had knowledge about art from other cultures and not just my own, in this case, Norwegian example. I could talk about African art or Polynesian art with students of those backgrounds, or Chinese, or whatever it was. We could do some research together, especially via video, and they could all produce something to be proud of.